I know. A rectangle with my name on it might be it. Yeah, I want to talk to you about that, but not right now, obviously. Because right now I should probably start this meeting. Good evening. I would like to call to order the Albany City Council meeting for September 17th, 2018. Please join Councilmember Pilch in the Pledge of Allegiance. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Barnes is absent. Councilmember Moss?
Here.
Councilmember Pilch?
Here.
Vice Mayor Nason? Here. Mayor McQuaid?
Here. We have one item of ceremonial matter. The cross on Albany Hill was recently lit by the Albany Lions Club to commemorate September 11th. I want to reiterate that neither the City Council nor the City of Albany endorses in any way the lighting of the cross for any occasion, religious or nationalistic, or supports its continued presence on public property. We continue to work through the judicial system for a resolution. We appreciate the input and support received to date from the public and encourage you to continue respectfully sharing your concerns with the Lions Club as well as the City Council. Report on items taken in closed session. Council gave direction to staff. Consent calendar. Consent calendar items are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. By approval of the consent calendar, the staff recommendations will be adopted unless otherwise modified by the City Council. There will be no separate discussion on these items unless a council member or a member of the public requests removal of items from the consent calendar. Does any council member wish to pull an item?
5-6, please.
I'm pulling 5-9. Okay, so 5-6 and 5-9. Go ahead.
Okay, for 5-6, the sidewalk, the Washington Street contract. I just wanted to clarify. I had a little email with staff about this, that we do not have to close the northern sidewalk between Gateview and Polk, because that sidewalk is already red curbed and cannot be parked on. And I just wanted to make sure that I understood that correctly. Is that's still the case? Okay, and so I don't think that's, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's not explicitly called out in our packet, correct? That's correct. Okay, but we probably should make that explicit, just so there's an understanding. Is that?
We can make that explicit in the design contracts and also, through the design process. So when it comes back to review, we can highlight that,
Okay.
as well as whatever actions you want to take on this.
Yeah, I think that would be wise. That would be my preference, because the way it's written, I think people might think that we are changing things such that there might be parking in that stretch of the sidewalk when that's not the intention. So if council members are okay with that, then we can give that staff that direction to make that more explicit, just to clarify, really.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have 3 speaker cards on that item.
On 5-6, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If you've turned in a speaker card and wish to speak to this item, please come up.
I'm Michael Gold at 802 Cerrito Street. I'm here to ask to remove item 5-6 from the agenda tonight. Am I in order, Ms. Mayor? Try to speed things up a little bit, whether the issues, I'll end with the contract. I'll begin with, there's a little bit of unfortunate language in the staff report. I'd like you to please review what it says in the staff report about the phrase with the red curbs. Please rethink very carefully. I don't blame city staff at all for this. It looks like it's a very complicated issue, and one person speculated the language looked like it had been held over from some earlier document. The ordinance or order that you've proposed for tonight has a typographic error in it. It's a rather amusing one that seems to put Kittleson on the hook for actually dumping some pavement on the ground, not just designing it. They have no Yelp reviews for that. Please review the language of the ordinance. A copy editor can identify what I'm talking about. As for the contract, Kittleson defined a statement of work, and I see a lot of good hard work went into it. I have some problems with the statement of work that talks about 8 new ramps at Cerrito and 6 new ramps at Polk. That's in English, that's 4 new crosswalks and at Cerrito and 3 new crosswalks at Polk. New meaning we would have to modify the existing, even if they complied with ADA in the past, maybe they don't comply with the current version of the Americans for Disabilities Act. Where does it end? How do we end up with 7 of these things? As a matter of fact, the same provisions of the Code of Federal Regulations that require newly constructed or altered streets to have curb ramps, the very same section, 28 CFR 35-121, makes reference to the disproportionality clause, which means that alterations made to provide an accessible path of travel, blah, 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 are disproportionate when they exceed 20% of the cost of the alteration. So what the contract needs to say, Mr. Pilch, is that we will price the accommodations. That's also in here. I can't give you the exact site. We will price the accommodations, and we'll price the alteration without the accommodations. And then we'll look at the price, and we'll see what we can do. I'm authorized to speak tonight by several people who couldn't be here, some of whom, in my opinion, are at risk for mobility impairments. Please consider that they do not necessarily support one person's idea of accessibility. Don't take their lives, don't upset their lives in the name of accessibility when they don't think you're improving accessibility. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Colby Scott. I live at 854 Washington. I also would like to have 5.6 pulled from the consent calendar due to some ambiguity in the staff report among some of the other areas in those reports, and probably maybe some lack of awareness among other people on Washington Street and whatnot. And that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Deborah Denherter at 821 Polk Street. I also am requesting that we remove 5-6 from the consent calendar today, please. So because the neighborhood would like more input on what is in it, it seems to be significantly different from what we all understood from the February meeting, and these affect our lives pretty directly. So it's really important to us that we are involved in the plan rather than going ahead with a plan that's different from what we understood to be discussed at the February meeting. And lots of people also, I want to say, are interested that couldn't be here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on this item? Seeing none, does staff have any comments?
So the first comment regarding the disproportionality, one of the things that staff did on this project was to add the paving elements along with the striping and the striped bulb outs were sections of Washington that we want to actually repave. So that increases the overall cost of the project. When you do that, you trigger ADA compliance requirements. So the six ramps and the 8 ramps at the intersections were triggered because we chose to make this a more efficient project and add the paving elements to that. If that's something that we need to come back to council with once it's designed, really the intent here was to move the project forward from the planning phase into the design phase. And when that happened, we thought because we were paving parts of Washington already, we should add that element into the project. Regarding the other issues that the neighborhood wants more input, we listened to both the January and the February council meetings, and we reviewed those minutes. So that's how we crafted the scope. So we're certainly open to responding to that.
Thank you.
Question. So originally the paving was not part of the discussions in January and February, but for just to make sure that we are doing a complete project, you added the paving. Is it a complete redo of the paving, or is it a slurry seal, or which treatment exactly is it? I can't remember from the staff report.
We haven't decided specifically on it depends on the condition. I haven't looked carefully at the PCI. It is a degraded part of the street, so a slurry seal may not be enough to really raise the PCI on that one.
Okay, thank you.
And if we didn't do that now, we'd need to come back and do it fairly soon or at some point. Is that correct?
I believe council asked us, or maybe it was traffic and safety, asked that Washington be a private priority for paving. So the staff is responding to that request.
Any comment? Okay, thank you. So is there interest on the council of removing this item at this time?
I think it would be wise just to make sure that there are no misunderstandings. I trust that staff has done a good job of trying to incorporate what they've heard in the January and February meetings. But since this has been this has been a project that it's very important for the residents. I think that it would behoove us to wait another council meeting, if possible, to make sure that we've got our T's crossed and I's dotted.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would agree with that. This is just for the engineering and planning part of it. So we're not doing the project now. It's sort of that initial step. But if staff thinks that clarification of this might help in the understanding of the neighbors.
The end of the planning process is really where you kind of settle on a scope of work, and the beginning of the design process where you bring on a consultant, relay them to the scope elements that you want to put on design drawings. So it becomes a little bit more expensive to change the scope in that first part of the design process. As you move through the design process, it becomes more and more expensive, but it's just, you're correct, we're still drawing the project. We want to settle on the scope as soon as we can. So having an additional meeting with the neighborhood is certainly probably prudent for us to do either now or at the beginning. If you were to choose to move on the contract, we could still do that at the beginning part of the contract. It's really, you can direct us to do that.
Have you met? Has staff met with the folks who spoke tonight? Do you?
I've only discussed with them briefly. All of my information was received from the videos, because when it was presented to council in January and February, Aleda Andrino Chavez was the project manager. So she was leading the effort. So she spent a lot of time working with the neighborhood.
I think there may have been some confusion for the folks who spoke about what it means to pull something off of the consent calendar, that they were thinking that would mean it would not, that the item would not be heard tonight. And I think that in light of that misunderstanding, it would be a good idea to put it over. What I think we'd ask of the neighbors and of the staff is to identify, I didn't have a great understanding of the concerns that were expressed tonight. It would be great to have those reduced to writing and a clear understanding of where the staff and the neighbors disagree about what we decided back in January and February. And we know that you work hard to understand what our direction has been. Our direction is not always crystal clear, we know that, but we need to know where the points of disagreement actually are. And I think that meeting in person and encouraging the neighbors to reduce their concerns to writing so that we can understand that would be helpful.
Okay.
Jeff, do you have a comment?
To the degree that's helpful for council, just to briefly summarize, the planning process for this work, it began in 2011, and we've gone through a couple of different iterations of this that ultimately did go through numerous traffic and safety commission meetings and came to you early this year. It's been a challenging planning process because there's no perfect answer. There are issues with respect to traffic safety. There are issues with respect to motor vehicle safety. There's issues with respect to pedestrian safety, emergency access, street parking, so on and so forth. There's no solution that we've been able to find that works for everybody. So we can continue to go through that planning process, but I don't think it's going to, we're going to kind of go around a little bit in circles, I'm afraid.
Well, I think that my opinion is that another conversation with the neighbors wouldn't be about changing the scope or changing the project, just clarification of what's in these documents, which can be pretty confusing to the layperson. So I would agree with that we have arrived at what we want to do, and it's just making sure that there's an understanding of how that got into these papers.
I would agree with that we're not inviting a reopening of anything that was decided previously. But people were saying that what is in the staff report is not the same as what was decided. And I want to be sure that we have the two aligned.
And staff did say that actually the introduction of the paving did then trigger the introduction of other features, but these are standard features. Nothing out of the ordinary for any street, but it still would be good to clarify that to the neighbors.
It seems to me that we've spent, like Jeff said, since 2011 working on this, and I would like to move it forward. I do think there's another opportunity. There's probably many more opportunities to discuss this. So I'd hate to stop it now and then have yet another conversation and come back here. I'd rather move it forward with the idea that we will be having a conversation as the project moves forward. Does that work, Robert? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that works. We can have that meeting with neighbors and staff. We can have that meeting in front of Kittleson. There's a lot of different ways for that to happen, and we can make that the first action item for us to go forward from here. We don't need to. We can have direction from the city manager to hold off on the contract after you guys take action, or we can move forward and just have that as the first action for Kittleson to take on our behalf.
I think the conversation's important, but I also think that moving this forward is important, and I think that's the best way to accomplish both of those goals.
Yeah, I would say that sounds like a good course of action for us tonight. It's coming back to me now, some of the many issues around this whole project, and it was, as I recall, it was one of those situations where not everyone was going to be happy no matter what happened. I think if we can communicate what this is and why we're doing it and have that discussion with the neighborhood, then I think that might be about as good as we're going to get.
And as a reminder, with any design process the city conducts, it's an open public process that would run before both traffic and safety and the city council, including the neighborhood and anyone that wanted to participate in the process.
Okay, so with that, are you,
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I think that's the good direction. Move this forward. Also, the direction to staff that the conversation with the neighbors needs to happen as well.
okay, so with that, we will leave it as part of the consent calendar. I did pull 5-9, which relates to the pruning, trimming, removing of the eucalyptus trees on Albany Hill. I'm just concerned that, well, I understand the expense and that whole piece of it, that we're just not moving quickly enough with the removal of the trees. There's that balance between it is a fire hazard, it's also a very sensitive habitat for butterflies and other creatures. So is there a timeline for removing more trees?
So we have a couple things in works. We have, so all the work on Albany Hill is based in the 2012 master plan. And with that, we have, what we plan to do is go to the Parks and Recs Commission every year. We're going to go in October, I believe, where we present out the plan for the work at Albany Hill that'll include vegetation management, invasive species removal, as well as any tree work. So we would be doing that and trying to get into a real annual program where it's very predictable. We'll present what we're going to do, go do it, and then report back and present what we're going to do the following year. We also have, as part of the Albany Hill access improvement plans, a number of trees that are slated for coming out. Some of those are just in conflict with the project. Some of them are requested from the fire department, so that is in the works and will be presented to the Parks and Recs Commission in October. And all the tree work will have input of our monarch habitat person, so that we're not impacting the monarch habitat. And in some cases, he's making recommendations to remove trees to improve the habitat.
Has there been any exploration of getting any grant? Is there any grant funding out there for tree removal, say through CAL FIRE or any? Have we ever?
I'm not.
did that?
Not to my knowledge.
Is it worth pursuing?
We could look into it.
I have heard that, I believe from Friends of Albany Hill members, that in the past there were grants, there were FEMA grants available, some very small pot, because this isn't the big urban wildland interface that they're mainly concerned about, but that kind of stopped with the monarchs, and maybe now that we have the new monarch report, we can kind of knit the two together and start looking for grant funding again.
Sure, we can definitely look into that.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so I think we've gotten through consent. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Poll the council, please.
Councilmember Moss,
Yes.
Councilmember Nason,
Yes.
Councilmember Pilch,
Yes.
Mayor McQuaid.
Yes. Good of the city. Good of the city is a time for persons desiring to address the city council on an item that is not on the agenda. Please note that city policy limits each speaker to 3 minutes. The Brown Act limits the council's ability to take and/or discuss items that are not on the agenda. Therefore, such items are normally referred to staff for comment or for future agenda. Do you have comment cards?
No. Oh, yes, I do. I'm sorry. Leah and Peter.
Come on up.
Hi, I'm Leah Burrell with the Diverse Housing Working Group. I'm concerned about this job offering for the Neighborhood Services Coordinator, And my feeling is that this reads like an entry-level job that anyone with maybe a college degree could do. Our previous person in that position, Allison Mertz, had an MSW, a Master of Social Work. And your requirement here says they just need a minimum of a bachelor in psych and a couple of years of experience, but they don't specify what that is. I'm concerned that if we hire someone without the appropriate experience, we're moving backwards. Allison had a master's. She was ready to go. We're not requiring that, so I'm feeling it's a step backwards. And that's not going to benefit our population that we want to serve, which are very complicated people with homelessness, with addiction, drug, alcohol abuse, mental illness, the whole range of human experience. These people present to the resource center needing help, and I'm really concerned that they're not going to get the help they need because the person hired is not going to have the strong counseling experience and skills that I feel are needed. It also says the job's temporary, and when I was a client of the resource center, Allison left. I had formed a relationship with her. I had formed a trust with her. She left. It's a huge void. And some clients need to work with someone for a long time. They're not just in and out. So I'm feeling that the temporary nature of the job is detrimental. I feel that the population you're trying to serve is in need of very complicated help. And hiring someone with these minimal skills doesn't show respect for the person you're hiring, nor does it show respect for the clients involved. I understand you just hired someone to deal with social media, and you are paying a lot of money to Berkeley Food and Housing. The least this city could do is find a qualified person and pay them for a permanent job with full-time hours and benefits. And I feel that that would really show respect for the clients, for the people involved, for the people who are receiving services, and for the person working. We don't want someone just coming in and thinking la-di-da, it's entry level, lining their resume, and leaving when they get a better job. This happened with Allison. I'm not saying she was like lining her resume, but she needed more money and more income, so she moved on. So I would like this to be considered. I know the job opening expires on the 25th of next week. If we could do something to change this offering, I would appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Peter Campbell, an Albany resident. I don't know if I should be addressing this to you or if it should go to the Traffic and Safety Commission, but I wanted to discuss it since I'm here. As you know, Key Route from Solano north is a divided road, has a median, large median. At three intersections, the first three intersections after Solano, that's Washington, Portland, and I believe Thousand Oaks, there are stop signs on Key Route and on those side streets that say all way, all directions, or whatever the wording is, implying that that all traffic crossing in any direction will stop, and then the normal right-of-way rules would apply. Well, at all three of those intersections, there's a stop sign on the side street and there's a stop sign on Key Route, but there are no stop signs in the median. So somebody turning or entering the intersection from one of the side streets can go right through the intersection, and I believe that presents a hazard to the cross traffic and confusion about who has the right-of-way, et cetera. So I hope that somebody can look into that and consider whether there needs to be a modification of that intersection design as far as stop signs are concerned. I know when you go further on to, I think Brighton, it has proper signage on all of it. The cross median part has stop signs as well as the side streets. And I think that all three of those other intersections should have the same thing for safety. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Brian Beal. I'm going to talk about something else, but I just thought I'd mention I've also noticed the stop sign situation on Key Route, noticed a little confusion there. I'm here tonight to talk about the upcoming election just in case people aren't aware there's going to be one, because it's a midterm election year. A lot going on nationally, but here in Albany, I wanted to talk a minute about the school board race. Looks like it's going to be an important opportunity to make some changes and get some diversity. The Albany Democratic Club was formed since the last election, so it's going to be interesting to see how that impacts the results. But what I wanted to mention was one of the candidates, Charlie Blanchard, who's an incumbent, really stood out to me, having personally talked to him about the situation with the Instagram incident with charter schools. He really seems to have a firm grasp on what's going on. Sarah Hinckley, she has been involved with the Albany Community Action, and I think she's got a good grasp on things, and also Brian Doss. So I think these are all real good candidates. And I think it's real important that we, in Albany, that we're known for our good public schools, and that one of the issues that's emerging in education in California is charter schools, and that we all need to understand that our kids are going to do the best when all children have the best opportunity, the equal opportunity, and that's what public schools does for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Aycock, a 34-year Albany resident. I work in the Albany Community Resource Center as a volunteer. In the first 5 months, we had Allison Mertz as our coordinator director, and we've been sort of treading water since February, trying to keep the program going. And I want to say that I also feel we need somebody who's highly qualified and competent and has a grasp of the issues that are involved in working with homeless people and people at risk of homelessness and with various mental health and housing issues, various sorts. And whatever it takes to get that person, whether it's rewording the job description or just being really focused on in the interviews on making sure we get somebody who can handle the job, I think that's very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Seeing no one, we'll bring it back to council. Council member reports on meetings attended, announcements to future meetings, city manager reports. I'd like to start by saying that there will be a coffee with the cops tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. on the Albany Greenway, just south of Brighton. Other council members have things to report?
Sure, I can start. As I sent to the council, I attended one day of the League of California Cities meeting because my subcommittee, the Environmental Quality Policy Subcommittee, was had a resolution to vote on, and I wanted to bring it to the attention of the council because it was it was really a learning experience for me. The council member from Malibu brought it forward. She's the current chair of that committee, and it regarded anticoagulant rodenticides. I guess this is a form of rodenticide that is less lethal. It's not a poison, but it's an anticoagulant, meaning that the rodents who get it eventually end up bleeding out over a week or two. Quite a horrible thing to think about. And the consequence of this is that also animals who might eat rodents end up getting this in their system as well. And although it might not kill them, it can cause them severe harm as well. So she brought forward this resolution to ask, but the other part of it that was a learning experience was that the the cities have no power to ban any pesticides within their jurisdiction, and this is the state law. And although the city can mandate that the city itself have a policy for their own use of pesticides, it cannot tell any other owner of land in the city, how they can use pesticides. And that was also news to me. So there are two parts to this resolution. One, to study potentially changing state law so that cities can have some control over that. The other was a study of these rodenticides just to see if, to study the potential harms of these rodenticides, and hopefully also bring forward alternative ideas like perches for raptors, for hawks and eagles, so that you bring in a natural method of controls of rodents. And this passed through, and this was eventually passed through the League of California Cities, and with several modifications, somewhat minor modifications, but it did eventually pass. So I thought that was some important information for us. Also attended the chamber mixer a week or two ago, and that'll do it for my report.
No report.
Okay. I can report on 3 meetings I attended last week primarily. First off was the Programs and Projects Committee of the Alameda Transportation Commission. It was a kind of a light agenda, but a lot of time was spent on an expansion of the BART station at Bayfair in San Leandro. Sort of the takeaway for, I think, any elected official was in the Measure BB, it was promised that the monies would be spent on that station to provide a seamless trip from people coming from the Tri-Valley and then continuing south to the extension of BART into Silicon Valley. BART now is thinking that definition of seamless trip is going to be walking across the platform. People coming from the Tri-Valley seem to think that should be a whole new BART line going down there. So it'll be interesting to see how this is resolved going forward. I also attended a Housing Authority of Alameda County. That was also a fairly light agenda with scholarships being afforded to 17 applicants and a adoption of a continued continuity of operations plan in case of disaster, so much like what we did around the FEMA requirements here. The one thing of note there was we are now down to 17 families getting receiving vouchers for housing in Albany. When I started on that authority, we were at 37, and I think it reflects the high cost of housing in Albany and how that cost just keeps going up, and so there's less housing here that's even eligible for housing vouchers. And then finally, I was at the Planning Committee and Alameda County Recycling Board meeting. The takeaway there was that there were 3 information items. We are, as a county, doing much better about getting the so-called good stuff, the recycling and the organics, out of the trash and into the proper barrels. The downside is that there's less of a market for the recycling and that the standards for organics are going up. So in the long run, we're going to need some kind of political action which will probably start to limit what materials can be used for things like packaging and also higher standards for what goes into the organic bin, so you can't get little bits of plastic or food containers that have a plastic lining. All interesting stuff.
I attended one of the Music in the Park events, the Chamber Mixer, the Shoreline Cleanup. I also attended the Yellow Command VIP tour, which was part of Urban Shield. We went to the shelter in Fremont and also spent a lot of time in the EOC out at the Alameda County EOC. I also attended an ACTC subcommittee where we mostly talked about 580 and 680 freeways. I went to the League of California Cities where I was able to vote on Nick's proposal, which was good. and also attended Tri-City Safety Day last Saturday. Is there a city manager report?
Quick update, you'll see on the screen, we are proud to announce Albany Local Week. There are quite a few events planned for the upcoming week. Please take advantage of those. And as many of you know, there is a prize for the individual who may attend the most, Uber Albany Award. So visit our website to find out all the opportunities available to take advantage of. In addition, we have the Solano Avenue Complete Streets pop-up design review. That will be at the corner of Solano Avenue and Pomona at Flowerland on September 22nd from 2 to 5 p.m. Please come join us, learn about Solano and how we're making improvements to make it usable for everyone. Our next CERT course will be starting Tuesday evening, September 25th through November 13th. Look at our website. It's important information that our fire department provides in terms of disaster preparedness, a class that we have ongoing. Another thing you'll see on the screen, we are proud to announce that a new art installation is underway on the Greenway. I think it's caused quite a bit of discussion thus far, and we've had some really positive feedback for the amenity to the Greenway. So hope that you get out there and enjoy it soon. The construction is clearly underway. It's not quite finished, but it's certainly coming quite along quickly. As a reminder, this is part of the overall improvements to the Ohlone Greenway Park. And one last item of note, more complete streets planning. On Thursday, September 27th at 7 p.m., the Traffic and Safety Commission will discuss complete streets planning for San Pablo and Washington Avenue. So please take advantage of that opportunity as well. And a reminder for all of these meetings and events I'm mentioning, our e-notify system on our website will help keep you informed. So when you ask the question, how would I have heard about that? You can sign up for those e-notifies and you can hear about everything right at your fingertips. Thanks.
You know, I had one question about one event, and I should mention, although I passed on doing a report, I went to both of the cleanups, the shoreline cleanup and the creek cleanup, but then I saw that there's a cleanup day. Oh, okay, no, I apologize, I misunderstood. It's the other creek that we're going to be cleaning up on Saturday. Very good, thank you.
Okay, is that it for everybody? Okay, that brings us to public hearing. Resolution number 2018-118, amending 2018-19 master fee schedule. Do we have a staff report, please?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and council members. As you'll recall, the master fee schedule is a document that consolidates the various user fees and service fees, regulatory and permit fees, development impact fees, infrastructure connection fees, and various fines and penalties associated with the municipal code. The fee schedule is updated at least once a year, and in June 4th, you did adopt a resolution amending the master fee schedule for the fiscal year. There are a couple of changes that we'd like to introduce with your action this evening. First, there are several new programs that have been adopted since you took action on the master fee schedule related to electric vehicle chargers and the rent review program. When you took action on those programs, you discussed what those fee levels would be, and this is simply to incorporate it into the document and formally adopt them. And also, we could, as happens every year, I'm afraid, we find little things that we would like to fix, corrections or clarifications that we'd like to make. So in this case, there were several highlighted where we wanted to make sure that it was in the reformatting of the document this year, a couple of things dropped off, and we wanted to fix that before we got too far into the fiscal year. There aren't any major new policy issues with this other than, as I mentioned, the ones that you've already discussed with electric vehicles and rent review. Be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from council?
I've got one. You know, one thing that I thought about while looking over all our fees, we have a fee for a taxi cab. I don't know how often we give out taxi cab fees. It's not a lot of Albany taxi cabs that I ever see on the street. However, I make use of Lyft and Uber on occasion. Do those fees ever apply to those phenomena? Did anyone try to apply taxi cab fees to them?
I'm sorry, I don't know much about the taxi cab business. With respect to Uber and Lyft and the sharing economy generally, I think most municipalities are trying to catch up to the new economy. So technically, I believe they're required to have a business license. It's difficult for us to track people down and whether a vehicle who's driving in Albany is a Albany-based Uber, Lyft, or is it a Berkeley-based one or something like that. So as a practical matter, I don't think we're collecting anything, but technically we should.
Every Uber or Lyft driver that drives into Albany would be required to have a license, or would just the company be required to have a business license?
I don't know. I'd have to look into that. I know we're working on updating our Airbnb program. We're getting some technical assistance with that so that we know exactly who's operating an Airbnb in town. I don't know how it works with the Lyft
I'm not even sure how I feel about taxing or requiring licenses of these agencies, but it is certainly a new phenomenon, and it's probably driving taxis out of business. And, should they be paying their fair share of business license fees, particularly since they're using the roads? I don't know.
Yeah, we can do some research for you and bring that back. Next time we bring the master's fee schedule to you.
It might be something for, if they ever have the time, for traffic and safety to ponder as a advisory committee.
Maybe that's more of a city treasurer. Business licenses fall within the city treasurer, which may be an office that may be restructured, and maybe we should revisit it.
Perhaps that would be the better place.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Are there any other questions from council?
Nope.
Seeing none, I'll open up to the public. You have comment cards? Yes. Mr. Campbell's on his way up.
Thank you very much. My name is Peter Campbell. I'm an Albany resident, have been for 46 years, and I'm president of the Albany Property Rights Advocates, known by the acronym APRA, pronounced APRA. We represent the interests of the rental providers of Albany. We have been and will continue to be opposed to overregulation of rental housing. When it became clear that some form of regulation would be put in place, we tried to cooperate with the city to help provide an effective ordinance. Some of our requests were incorporated, others were not. Thank you for incorporating the points where we did agree. Now, the proposed fee schedule was noticed to the public in two newspaper notices, one Friday, September 7th, and another one Wednesday, September the 12th, in the West County Times. I'm not sure it was noticed anywhere prior to that, but those two notices are hardly sufficient notice to the public. The Friday edition is a throwaway. Most people throw it away as soon as they get it, and I'm not sure anybody buys or subscribes to the regular West County Times. We disagree with the fee schedule being discussed tonight. As proposed, most rental providers at the proposed fee of $15 per unit per year will pay hundreds, if not thousands, of dollars by the time they are called for a rent review hearing. Most will never be called. Most providers are small mom-and-pop operators with one or two rental units rented out to help provide a small income to supplement Social Security in retirement. A few have had the foresight and ability to obtain a few more units than just two, but they are still small mom-and-pop operations. They are either now or expecting in the future to supplement their Social Security retirement income. Many of these small owners have traditionally kept their rents low, believing that it is more important to keep good tenants by keeping their rent low rather than maximizing their rents. The proposed fee schedule punishes these small owners by charging an annual fee. APRA believes that if there is to be an owner fee, it should not penalize the rental provider. As proposed, renters will pay only $15 when they apply for a hearing. By the time this happens, as I mentioned a few moments ago, the provider may have paid hundreds or thousands of dollars to the city in extra fees. The fee schedule is unfairly skewed against the rental provider. We believe the applicant should bear more of the burden than just $15. A larger application fee would discourage frivolous applications. An equal fee could be charged to the rental provider at the same time as the applicant, instead of charging an annual fee for a hearing that may never, ever happen. This would have a better effect on discouraging large, perhaps unwarranted rent increases, the desired result of the ordinance. It would also make it more equitable for both parties involved in the hearing. There is an exemption for certain renters, such as those receiving public benefits, including but not limited to Medi-Cal, CalFresh, or food stamps, CalWorks, General Assistance, SSI, SSP, Tribal TANF, IHSS, or CAPI. We believe these same exemptions should be provided for any rental providers in these same categories. We hope you will consider these points as you move forward with the implementation of the ordinance. Thank you for your attention to our thoughts and concerns.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak? Seeing no one, I'll close public hearing, bring it back to council. Are there any final comments?
I'd like to comment to what Mr. Campbell just said, briefly. We're instituting this, and these fees, I think at the end of the first year, we're going to require feedback to see how much this whole rent review system is used, if it's being abused, and just where that's going. And, I think at that point, perhaps we might reconsider adjusting fees thusly. But right now, this is all kind of new, and it's our attempt to get some equity into what we had seen as rapidly rising rents in Albany. So I would hope that the property owners would give us a year to work some of these things out to see if all these prices are placed correctly. And, I think whatever is, on the books now could change in a year, depending upon what kind of feedback we get. So, that's the way I would look at it.
Other comments? Joe? Okay. Could I get a motion, please, to approve the resolution?
I will move resolution number 2018-118, amending the 2018-19 master fee schedule.
Second.
May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Moss?
Yes.
Councilmember Pilch?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nason?
Yes.
Mayor McQuay?
Yes, and the motion carries. That brings us to new business 11-1, Resolution 2018-113, authorizing the city manager to execute the exclusive negotiating agreement and enter into an exclusive agreement between the City of Albany and Satellite Affordable Housing Associates for an affordable housing project at Cleveland and Washington. May we have a staff report, please?
Yes. Good evening. Before you tonight is the final draft of the exclusive negotiating agreement. So the city and SAHA have been working together for the last several months on coming to some general terms to develop the site at Cleveland and Washington for an affordable housing project. So what is before you tonight is the finalized version of the agreement that we've been working on. Just to give the council and the audience some background, the site in question was transferred from Caltrans to city ownership in 2011, so it's a vacated Caltrans easement and has not been used for other development purposes. When we did our general plan update a few years ago, we gave it a land use designation of high-density residential with the intent, obviously, of developing it in the future for high-density residential. Earlier this year, SAHA and city staff met kind of just generally to discuss development feasibility of the site and concluded that the site is indeed feasible for an affordable housing development. So once the wheels were in motion, we met with the council 3 times prior to tonight, so February 5th, April 2nd, and June 18th to discuss the potential transfer and development of the site. And just to give you a snapshot, this is the site in the general plan. So if you look at the screen, it's this parcel here. So this is Washington, this is Cleveland. Up here is Pierce Street Park. So this would be the site. The property lines are to be determined, but right now we anticipate that the site will be roughly about an acre or so for the development. And this is a photo of the site as it stands today. This is on Washington looking north. Cleveland Avenue is to the west. So for your review this evening, you have received a copy of the final draft exclusive negotiating agreement, as well as a draft resolution that, if adopted tonight, would authorize the city manager to execute the ENA. And just to give you some highlights, there is altogether what we agreed upon a 24-month window in which these terms would be negotiated with an initial 12 months to make substantial progress in the negotiations, with the potential for 2 6-month extensions. So if we don't make enough progress within those first 12 months, we would have the opportunity to have 2 extensions, but ideally this would be ironed out within 24 months from the date of execution. And as part of that, the outcome would be a mutually accepted disposition and development agreement for the transfer of the land for affordable housing development. So this has been moving kind of at a slow pace thus far. Once this agreement is executed, we expect this to start moving more quickly. And just to give you an idea of some deliverables that would be on the front burner, within 30 days of the date of execution, both city staff and SAHA would have prepared a community engagement plan. Within 45 days of the date of execution, a title report and adequacy determination would be made by SAHA, as well as some additional reports, studies, and analyses to determine the site feasibility for development. And then looking beyond that, beyond a 90-day window, it's incumbent upon SAHA, as part of this agreement, to identify any title objections, to prepare a preliminary conceptual plan, which would include the scope, building area, development phasing, affordability, and a pro forma and site plan, as well as further concluding any physical adequacy determination. And then kind of beyond that, the TBD to be determined would be SAHA responsible for preparing a financial analysis. We would work with them on kind of the overall scope of project entitlements for this development. The housing affordability and the population served is also to be determined. So right now that there is no predetermined outcome in terms of what population this project would potentially serve. We would also expect within that a planning application would be filed and would start going through the process through our Planning and Zoning Commission. So again, for your review tonight, you have the final draft, as well as a draft resolution that, if adopted, would allow the city manager to execute the ENA. And we also have representatives from SAHA here to address the council.
Should we invite Susan up now?
Yeah.
Come on up, yeah.
I'll keep my remarks brief, but I'm very happy to answer any questions you have. Good evening. My name is Susan Friedland. I'm the long-term executive director of Satellite Affordable Housing Associates and a proud Albany resident. SAHA has been in the community of the East Bay for over 50 years, and our experience is building affordable housing, affordable rental housing for seniors, families, people with special needs. And we have created in these years over 65 communities, mostly in Berkeley and Oakland, but as far as Sonoma County and into Contra Costa. So we have deep experience working with cities as partners to help meet affordable housing goals that they may have. And we are deeply honored to be working with Albany to meet the needs that you've identified in your housing element and your general plan, and to take advantage of the sort of single biggest city-owned site that's suitable for affordable housing. We're really looking forward to creating housing opportunities for low-income families, seniors, benefiting from the fabulous public schools and all the amenities that we enjoy. So we're really honored. It's been a great process. We've really enjoyed working with staff to get to where we are. And we hope that during the sessions that you've had, you've thoroughly understood what the process is. Clearly, we're at a very early stage, so we can't give specifics about exactly how many units or what population type, but we're really looking forward to executing an ENA to enable us to work with the city to move the project forward. So again, delighted to be here. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Are there questions from council?
No questions. We're glad you're here.
Yes.
I do have one question. on 11-1C in the recitals for B, is it possible to, and this may be too early since you just said it was too early, but I'm going to say it anyway. Is it possible to include veterans as a sort of a call-out group that we're interested in serving?
Yeah, we're definitely open to a range of population types. Veterans is a population type that we do have experience working with. There's been a new funding source for veterans housing for veterans in the last 3 years. And we have a project actually almost complete in American Canyon. That's a veterans project, and another project in Pittsburgh in Antioch that we just finished. So we're experienced with that population, and if that's what the city identifies as a priority, and if it's financially feasible, it's something we're interested in.
Great. Thank you. Any questions? Is there any public comment on this? Thank you, Susan. Sure.
Hi, I'm Brian Beal. I just wanted to say I'm glad that the city's moving forward with bringing affordable housing to Albany. I know there was a lot of discussion earlier on in the process about maybe doing something with Berkeley instead. It's good that it's worked out. We're getting at least something here. I also would echo Mayor McQuaid expressing concern for the veteran population. I think this is a very vulnerable population that's out there, who's suffered a lot, and it'd be good if we could do something for them. And I hope we can identify some more sites at some point. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Julie Wakely Lynch. I'm the rector at the St. Albans Episcopal Church and a founding member of the Diverse Housing Working Group. And I'm just so delighted to see the city and Saha at this point after many, many years of work that the Diverse Housing Working Group has done in supporting your good work working toward affordable housing. And I know that many members of our group can't be here tonight, but that we certainly all appreciate your efforts, and we would really encourage you to approve this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up, Leah.
Yeah, Leah Burrell with Diverse Housing Working Group. I want to echo my profound appreciation for all the hard work you guys put in and the hours of suffering and secret meetings back there. But you worked it out, and I'm so eager for it to bear fruit. But this will be a model. If the widgy little city that's Albany, this tiny little town, can do this thing, we are a model for other towns that may not want to go there yet. I'm anxious to learn when you'll break ground, when you'll be done, how many units you plan to have, and if there will be some involvement from the community as to the amenities that we would like to see in this development. Like whatever you're offering, if we can have some input to what we'd like to see as well. But I applaud you guys. I'm so happy, and finally I get to say something positive. So, thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
I guess I'm also part of the Diverse Housing Working Group, so I have some interest in this, and I'm very happy that this is moving forward. I just wanted to clarify, is this project available, the funds from that bond issue, I think $2 or $2.5 million, is that available to go toward this project?
Yes, there is a process. We have to formally apply once we have a more developed scheme, but the short answer is yes, this project would be eligible for the county bond housing.
Okay, thank you. Also, just one more remark. After having 40 years experience in construction, in carpentry, home remodeling, I know that even building a fence between two properties, it's really a process of getting agreement among everyone involved, so I urge people to be really focused on working with the neighborhood to make this happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? I'll bring it back to council for final comments.
No comments. I'm just happy that you're here, and let's get on with it and see what we can build there.
Yeah, we know that there are challenges to the site, and we are really delighted that you're taking it on. We're delighted to be working with you.
I would echo those sentiments of being happy to work with you, and thank you for bringing the proposal to us. And my personal opinion is that I hope that you and staff work together creatively to maximize the use of this land and to increase the density and height in their the height of the project, and therefore its density to the maximum amount we can. That would be, and to house, and therefore house as many people as we can. And thank you again.
I would echo all of that. Let's move forward as quickly as we can. And with that, I'll move approval of Resolution 2018-113, authorizing the city manager to execute the exclusive negotiating agreement and enter into an exclusive agreement between the City of Albany and Satellite Affordable Housing Associates for an affordable housing project at Cleveland and Washington.
Second.
Poll the council, please.
Councilmember Moss?
Yes.
Councilmember Pilch?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nason?
Yes.
Mayor McQuaid?
Yes, and the motion carries. Thank you. I just have to say, I really feel like this is a huge step forward, and I'm really excited that we got here tonight. Okay, any other business or announcements, future agenda items? Seeing none, the next council meeting will be on October 1st. Enjoy local week, enjoy dinner with Albany, and we'll see you on October 1st.